Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Robert Hawley with ROVE. You are watching a ROVE Tech Talk. I'm really excited to talk to you today about bots and AI. As well, I have a guest speaker with me, Mr. Justin Ramirez with Cisco. Thank you so much for joining. I'll go ahead and get started here. So, new age of business solutions, bots and artificial intelligence. What is a bot? That is a question that's been out there for a while for people who may have interacted with bots and not even known it. It's become so much more popular in the last few years based on the ability for companies to leave their systems open. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But specifically, think of a bot as something that can help automate tasks for you. Think about like a human assistant. Something that you may have done as a human task can now be automated with a bot. You may have seen in the movies something like Jarvis, right? Somebody trying to help build Iron Man. It sounds kind of far-fetched, but you look in the real world and you have a CEO of Mark Zuckerberg creating something like Jarvis just in his own home, and as well something that's in development over in the Facebook labs. And like I said, you've been interacting with chatbots for a while, specifically with Apple Siri, Alexa, Cortana asking to turn on lights, open garage doors, set my alarms. Those kinds of things are actually just another form of bots. So what is a bot? If we break it down into the human factor that we have here on the left, the first plus sign being the way that you might interact with your bot. That could be Facebook Messenger, that could be Cisco Spark, that could be a lot of different platforms, and just like we had shown you with Cortana or Amazon Alexa, that bot lives in there with some artificial intelligence, with the ability to reach into your back-end business applications, or maybe an application that has an open API so you can communicate, interact with it, or be able to do a web search, things like looking up information, news articles, maybe going to look to the web for weather reports. So the ability to reach outside of your organization or inside of your organization, depending on what your requirement is. The other thing that I'll note here, what has become powerful with AI today is our advancement in natural language processing. Natural language processing is the ability for an artificial intelligence engine to understand what your intent is. What are you trying to ask a bot to do? And what are your responses? And having it understand that there are different ways for people to interact. Obviously, machine code and context are pretty, they're very strict. Syntax, being able to have an input and get a very specific output. The natural language processing kind of takes a difference between how you or I may respond to a question, for example. I may say yes, you may say yup, or correct, or onwards, or whatever you may do for an acknowledgement to a question. And the artificial intelligence needs to have the ability to process that, understand what you're asking, and give you, the proper response. So bots have actually been around for quite a while, and Alan Turing is the one from most of my research that has come up as kind of one of the creators in artificial intelligence, specifically, being the father of artificial intelligence and coming up with how to process intents to give you information. But outside of the history lesson, why is this important in business today? I will tell you that Cisco, for example, has made a $150 million investment in incentive for developers to go deliver integrations in bots with their platform specifically. So they see the future of bots and artificial intelligence within not only their platforms, but just around the world, and being able to interact outside of their own ecosystem. So these are actually really short lists, but just talking in general about bots in business, external uses that you probably are familiar with are things like customer service, being able to log into a website and have it pop up and say, oh, can I help you with something today? Ordering food, right? There are people today that have never picked up the phone and actually ordered a pizza by talking to someone. They've either interacted with an application, they've interacted with a website. Same thing with checking weather, your account balances, scheduling doctor visits, so on and so forth. A lot of people don't know that there are a lot of internal uses as well for bots within their own organization. So analyzing big data, being able to ask a question about maybe you have lots of sensors or manufacturing data, for example, and you need to do some correlation. Well, in the past, this may have been difficult to do in understanding how to parse that kind of data, put it into a system and get the right analytics back to you. Now it can be done a little bit easier by interacting with a bot who may know what you want and then can go in the background into your business application and provide useful data to you. Things like scheduling and booking, lobby registration. I'll give a little example here a little bit later on what I'm talking about. Things like sick leave can be a cumbersome activity or process or workflow within a large enterprise organization. And a bot can be a way to easily interact with the system, be able to put your sick time in and be done with it. The list goes on and on. There are lots of internal uses, but I definitely wanted to point out that there are ways to have these externally facing for end customers, for example, but as well, they're good for your CEOs see the value inside organizations as well. So I'll move on to some examples here. What you're seeing here is just kind of a mock-up of something Taco Bell actually did, where they created the Taco Bot. So as you can see, this is somebody in a chat messaging platform requesting, hey, I want to order a taco. And the responses are all coming back from a bot that's saying, okay, here's what you want to order. Do you want to add anything else to this? And here's how we go check out, make a payment, all that good stuff. But you can talk in natural human language and have it understand what you're trying to do and accomplish that for you. Visitor registration. So this is an interesting company, Envoy. This is one of our ecosystem partners that ROVE works with specifically. But there's a lot of businesses out there today that do just a piece of paper check-in registration. What's your name, what company, who you come to see. Someone's got to pick up the phone, track you down. Oh, you're not at your desk, you're at so-and-so's office. Oh, well, you know what, let me call their office. Oh, you're in a conference room, let me try there. And it can be difficult to track people down and get people checked in, especially in your medium to large organizations where you have multiple locations and large facilities, so on and so forth. This is just an iPad running the Envoy application with an integration in Cisco Spark. And like I said, we'll get to more about what Cisco Spark is and what it means. But in this particular case, this allows you to sign in, see who you want to go meet for the day, maybe sign an NDA, all done through an iPad, and it can be tracked. It can also, as you can see on the left, have a badge, automatically print out a badge card reader. It can also go as far as to provisioning wireless for you as well. So now that you've checked in, you've got your wireless password, and you're waiting in the lobby, the integration we have here with Cisco Spark, for example, is the person who is being visited gets a notice in their Spark app, whether it's on their smartphone, whether it's on their laptop or the tablet. This, as you can see in the red where it says Envoy, it says it's a bot, basically notifying that you've got somebody in the lobby. And so no matter where you are, whether you're on-site or off-site, you get the notification saying, hey, I'm here. Also with the option to be able to reach back out to that person and let them know, hey, I'm on my way, or I'll meet you at the elevators. So again, just one example. And since I mentioned Cisco Spark, something that our organization kind of lives and operates on, as well as working with our partners, manufacturing partners like Cisco, and with all of our customers that we deliver IT solutions for, I definitely wanted to talk about what bots and integration mean within this platform. And to do that, I've actually asked Justin Ramirez, who's the Global Business Development Manager for Cisco Spark ecosystem. I appreciate him being able to join us today.
Thank you very much. And as Rob mentioned, I head up global business development for the Cisco Spark ecosystem. At a high level, what Cisco Spark is, it's an all-in-one collaborative solution, essentially taking all of our workloads that we've had for quite some time, whether it's enterprise voice, immersive telepresence, web conferencing, team messaging, and even customer care, having all of that in one single cloud umbrella as a service. And the entire point of making this sort of platform extensible is so that you can simply integrate it into everything our customers may do. The only purpose of integrations and bots are so end customers can actually leverage workflows that they live in all day. Spark and really no messaging application out there, it's not inherently built or purpose-built to be a financial services app or a healthcare or education app. These bots and integrations or apps, they allow people to solve business problems, live in the same web pages, live in the same mobile applications that they do to get work done, and without disrupting anything. So the best way to achieve this is, well, first we have to understand what are all the components of Cisco Spark that are interesting. So you can see that it is definitely possible to create new spaces, title them whatever you want, specific to a topic or workflow, add people or remove people from that space. Messages can be sent between users, files can be shared, and of course real-time, this is where Cisco shines, is on the real-time components with video calling. So if we identify all the different components that make up the Spark offer, over time you can see several of these areas actually get exposed from our APIs or SDKs. So with what's available right now from the development group at Cisco, messaging is probably the strongest in terms of interfaces that we can actually allow a bot or integration to do some interesting things with. Adding people to a space, removing people, that's always been there. Sharing files has always been there, and just recently we've actually launched our WebRTC video calling capabilities. And so that's a whole new category. Bots actually taking or making real-time video calls for a variety of use cases. I don't think we've even scratched the surface of that. But this is what we can chat about today on the Spark platform. And that essentially leads to a whole ecosystem of vendors, each in their own right, that have a line of business or relevant solution that solves a pain point in some form or fashion. So my team actually heads up the relationships with all of these folks, and you'll see some of these at more public Cisco events. Some of them will tie to a given vertical, some are more horizontal, and we'll walk through a few use cases. But these folks are doing more than a basic webhook integration, more than something happens on one platform, you get a basic notification on another. These are very specific and very deep and complex workflows, and from a customer's perspective, it essentially protects investments that they may have made, and whether it's other Cisco gear or just in the healthcare, enterprise, financial, or other workflow apps that they've already invested in. So to define an integration or bot, a lot of times these things will come together. And Robert mentioned a few of the key characteristics of bots. But at a high level, it essentially is a machine account. A bot is a machine account that has essentially the same entitlement as a normal user. So it can, post messages, it can listen to messages, do a whole lot more than just listen, for a trigger. It can even join calls, as I mentioned, post files, and essentially be seen as its own entity. And so that's very interesting for a number of reasons. And from Cisco's perspective, a bot is very secure because the bot can only listen to messages that actually it's mentioned in. So for those that are security conscious, this is a great way to go. For an integration, on the other hand, this is something that a lot of folks have actually used in their personal life. As Robert mentioned, maybe they didn't even notice it. So you may have, if you're reading an article and you want to leave a comment, they may ask you to sign in with your Twitter account. Or if you're playing Farmville, a video game, and you log into Facebook, that game is actually posting to Facebook on your behalf. So an integration is actually acting on your behalf. It's not a separate entity, and it's allowing you to consume a web service in another service or in another application, but it's still doing so on your account with your name after you authenticate in. So that's how these two go together, and as I mentioned, they go hand in hand quite regularly. So to get into a few examples, one of our most frequently used integrations is actually from a company named SingleWire. They're really established themselves as the de facto emergency or mass notification solution for Cisco UC environments, and they're carrying that over into the Cisco Spark world. So if you can imagine, for a Cisco communications environment, this vendor can actually take every Cisco IP phone that's been, rolled out, think maybe on an entire campus to, 10,000 or 20,000 people, and each of those endpoints can be a broadcast device. So if there is an emergency, if someone in the manufacturing plant, pulls an eyewash station, or if there's a certain trigger sent from a keyboard from a front office, it can alert IP phones, it can change digital signage, it can unlock doors, it can even post to social media accounts. So taking that, from locating a group of 10 people to notifying, hundreds of thousands, this solution was essentially something very strong on premise that now is allowing for a bot to do the same thing anywhere that a user may be as a service. So a Spark user, if they're at the airport, if they're at a coffee shop, completely away from campus, they could trigger a mass notification event if needed with a simple bot command, and you can see the UI here. This user may want to know which campuses do I have access to, which distribution lists am I able to send a notification to. And these notifications may have pre-canned content, PDF files, images, instructions, what to do in a tornado or fire drill, what to do if there is a shooter on campus or a lockdown alert. These sort of things can be triggered off-net, on-net, and from a Spark user perspective, that bot can take 100 different people. If it's known that an incident is taking place on the second floor, I can immediately identify who all is located on the second floor, bring them into a Spark space, and do so ad hoc per event. This is the kind of functionality carried out by the cloud that was never possible before. So bots and very simple to use REST APIs or web APIs make this sort of use case very easy to deliver, and the experience is very crucial, especially in life-saving situations like this. So that's one example that's a bit horizontal. You can see that in any real enterprise, healthcare, finance, and especially education. This next use case is very specific to healthcare. You'll see a lot of folks, and I'll even speak to an example later on, talking about a customer experience or a customer journey. Tagnos actually tackle this from a patient experience or a patient journey. So what they do is they actually build a bot that keeps track of where a patient is inside of a healthcare practice and brings the practitioners together to keep them accountable, keep them up to date on where the patient is and what the next activity that needs to be tracked is. So from this workflow, a patient visits the hospital, they get onboarded, they're injured, they're sick, they're given a wristband with an identifier to the patient, and that wristband also has an RFID tag. So this is a bit of an IoT use case as well. The second that wristband gets distributed, it creates a Tagnos bot that spins up a Spark space and it fills it with the appropriate nursing and doctor staff that are going to be working on that specific patient. As that patient moves through the hospital, they get to their room, they get prepped for x-ray, and they go to surgery. The staff is made aware of everywhere this patient goes because the Tagnos bot, as you can see here, it lets them know the patient has now moved to this new area. They've been waiting for more than 10 minutes. It's time to touch that patient and get them to the next area. So what could be an 8 or 10 hour complete patient experience in the old world, the bot keeps the team up to date. It keeps them accountable and it helps them be more productive. Now that 8 to 10 hour complete workflow may be done in 4 to 5 hours. So the staff can collaborate in Spark, they can bring others in real time. The bot keeps everyone productive, and this also hits their bottom line. The more patients they can get in and out, the better experience that they provide to each patient, that also impacts their bottom line from a revenue perspective. And of course, Tagnos can also be used to notify the family members of the patient. The bot can trigger voice calls or text messages to ensure the family is also kept up to date with what's going on with their loved one. Very cool use case, a lot of applicability, very specific to healthcare. Another use case that I think a lot of us can relate with is in a retail environment. So let's say a user visits a home improvement store and they're looking at lighting supplies, going through the aisles, can't quite find what they're looking for, not really finding a local representative or associate that can help them. So they're looking through brochures. They happen to see a billboard in the lighting department with a text message short code, for any questions that they might have. So this user, they're just using their cell phone. They text in to a Quasi. Quasi is the provider of the solution. Quasi owns this text message number, and they relay that into a Cisco Spark space. So from the user's perspective, they're simply using their baked-in SMS client on whatever phone they may have had for the last 20 years, even a feature phone that you can play Snake on from 1998. They text in, ask their question. Quasi, as the integration glue in the middle, they have a bot that takes this SMS and they act as a gateway. They then push that message to a Cisco Spark space where a number of experts may be listening. The experts can chat amongst themselves in Spark, and then at any moment, one of the experts can say, okay, I'll take this one. They simply click on the phone number, and now they're entered into a one-on-one space, chatting essentially with the end user. The end user is chatting on their SMS client baked in on their phone. The Spark user is using a corporate or IT-blessed tool that has compliance. It's able to be logged, understand what your employees are interfacing with your customer, all the things that an enterprise would want, but still allow each user to live in an application that is convenient for them. So that's delivered by Quasi. If you've ever wondered who's that vendor that, if you've seen the Domino's pizza emoji commercials, who is powering that pizza emoji to order pizza as a chatbot, that's Quasi, and that's a Cisco partner of ours. One of the last use cases I'll mention is by a vendor named AltoCloud. So I mentioned with Tagnos, following the patient journey or the patient experience, AltoCloud does the same for your end customers. So what they do is they put some of their code on a customer website. That website, they want to know when an end user visits my website, I want to know, who that is. Are they an influencer? Are they a VIP that I need to engage with? So what AltoCloud does is they allow you to choose what is an ideal path. Every single person that lands on my home page, whether it's on desktop or mobile, I want them to end here. And that may be a sale. That may be to submit for a quote, put in a web form for a lead. Whatever that is, a retail customer may have a different desire than a service provider, may have a different desire than an insurance company. So what AltoCloud can do is they can identify, here's a point of risk. I see that you've deviated away from my ideal path, or I can see you've hit the FAQ section multiple times. You seem to be confused. I'm at risk of losing this customer before they get to my end goal. So AltoCloud can actually prompt the website visitor with a chat box. I can tell you're confused. If you have any questions, you're on the quoting webpage. If you have any questions about a quote, just let us know. So to the website user, they're simply getting a web chat box that most of us have seen at some point while navigating websites. But the other end of that chat box is actually a Cisco Spark user. The Cisco Spark users can get notified every single time a visitor visits a website. If that user happens to have filled out a web form, you can start to populate a profile that this guy may be a VIP. They are looking for a mortgage loan. Their income is very high. They have 2 other mortgages in different accounts. They're probably a VIP customer that you want to engage with. AltoCloud can then push a video call option as well. So not only just chat, they can engage at the highest level of visual engagement with a WebRTC video call to that end customer. So now AltoCloud's bot can connect them via chat, via video. And one last thing that I'll mention is their bot can also interface with consumer tools like Facebook Messenger. So if Bob's Tire Shop is using this bot, their customers who may be using Facebook all day, that's the tool of their choice. That's where they live. That's where they prefer to interface with the company. AltoCloud can take any messages sent from the Facebook messaging client and also interface that back to Spark. So once again, the enterprise is still using a corporate blessed tool. It's loggable. You can keep track of what your folks are doing with customers. and AltoCloud's bot is at the center of all of this. And so these are just a handful of line of business use cases that are very relevant to our customers. It obviously makes the Cisco Spark platform stickier, but essentially it solves joint business problems for the customers that really just make for a more delightful experience. So that's all I had, Robert. I know that our goal is to get folks to give the Cisco Spark application the test drive, check out some additional bots and integrations, and I'm sure that ROVE can help with that.
Yep, 100%. That's perfect. And dude, I'd like to use Snake on my old 1980s phone for sure. Yeah, I know, very well said. I think those are some incredible use cases. Please reach out to info@withrove.com. Please continue to look for our webinar series on our website, www.withrove.com. And as well, you know, feel free to reach out to either one of us on Twitter. Be happy to answer any questions. And thank you so much for joining.